We met Revel bikes way back in the year 2019, and we had our doubts. Like, did the world really need another bike company? Probably not, actually, but we're glad we got one. The Ranger, which is only Revel's third new model, is actually pretty dialed. I mean, just look at it. And it feels as fast as it looks.
Before you even throw a leg over it, it's just a stunning looking bike. Oh, I mean, color's great, stance is great. I mean, everything about it looks really high end. It kind of puts it in that tier with, you know, the Yetis and Santa Cruzes and people like that with these really boutique type brands.
Yeah.
And they're new.
And I was going to say, for a new company,
yeah.
I mean, they've kind of done a lot very quickly, I feel like.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they really came out of the gate running, like, number of years developing this suspension platform, and you can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
It rides really well.
And I think a big part of that is this SID suspension. The rear shock in particular works really great with this linkage. It really keeps you high up in the travel. When you're really jamming on it, you're not sinking into that travel. It's not mushy, you know?
Yeah, I actually preferred climbing with it open because the lockout is very firm. So even on the fire road, it felt, you know, like I actually really liked having that little bit of movement, and I thought I actually preferred riding it that way.
I think it'd be cool if they could, like, somehow offer different tunes for that lockout, you know?
Totally.
Like, imagine you could get that shock, because that shock has a very unique feel when you compare it to, like, a deluxe, right?
Absolutely.
It's just got this more lively, sporty feel, right? But I also thought that, like, you know, climbing up a fire road, it was like I was getting a little bit more activity out of the suspension than maybe I wanted if I was going to do like a big long 8-mile climb or something like that, you know?
Yeah, like something in between you can see a benefit for that.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like the Evils. Like if you're pedaling squares, you kind of notice it more. But if you like have a really nice cadence and you have a good force on the chain, and you're like, the more power you put into it, the more it sort of like really giddy ups and goes. Like there's this one feature that
Yeah, that last steep part of the climb, and I like to just gear down and just sprint up to the top and see kind of what speed I can maintain at the top. And I mean, it just puts the power down. Like it's really responsive.
And the downhill performance was
Yeah.
really nice too. Like it didn't.
Surprising.
Yeah, because going into it with this bike, I sort of felt a little scared because I was like, you know, it's obviously a very efficient, fast. I expected a harsh ride because it's an XC bike, and just sort of based on the suspension, I kind of felt like it would definitely shine climbing, and I was a little bit concerned about descending. But
yeah, and the SID suspension, like, I mean, you know, it's got a history of being sort of harsh, or like you had to run so much preload in them in order to get them to not bottom that they would then overall be harsh. But the new SID stuff actually stays high in the travel while being nice and supple through quite a fair amount of it. You know, we're all used to SIDs being noodly. That's like the whole history of this thing, right? And it's surprisingly very capable of pinning through that rock garden.
That was where I felt it the most, was like that chunky stuff. I mean, it really, I think the wheels might have played into that as well. I mean, it was a really comfortable ride.
And we've reviewed these Revel wheels that come on this bike. And they're really good. They've done a good job with them. They're really fast and lively, but they're also like, they have enough compliance to like tune out a lot of those high frequency noises from the trail.
I would compare it to the Yeti, how the SB115 descended.
Yeah.
Maybe even give an edge to this bike, to the Ranger.
There's some stiff competition in the Ranger's category right now, and the fact that it's holding its own says a lot. Revel's engineering has proven itself, but the brand's approach to spec is playing just as big a role.
I mean, I think a big part of this is a really smart tire spec. And maybe it's a bit of a coincidence. It's just the perfect tire spec for the conditions we're riding. Dry, dusty, blown out, and this dissector tire on the front. It doesn't feel overly beefy, but you've got that really predictable grip on the front, but it's still fast rolling, and it's a great match with the Recon on the rear.
Well, yeah, and you would think with a bike like this that maybe they would try to save weight there and kind of spec more of an XC tire, and it's another bike that I'm really grateful that they actually, you know, like decided that was an important place to make a weight sacrifice.
Totally.
I think another thing along those lines of making it kind of more versatile with some attention to detail is 3 water bottle mounts.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be racing one day or out adventuring somewhere the next. It's kind of cool
like
when you
really
think about it
cool
like that.
touch.
Yeah, and like if you're not interested in racing this bike and you don't want the like lightweight SID build, there's other options as well, you know. Or you can also go even more racy and get like the full lockout, the full remote lockout, so you can just go on the fly. Or there's a Fox option with a 34-step cast and like a, you know, float DPS shock.
Yeah.
So there are options there. They are a small, you know, US-based company that they do some custom stuff as other custom like options, right? You can choose your crank length, for instance. You can choose what dropper length you need.
And that actually I really like, because most mediums come with a 150, and I almost always want to ride a 170 if it will work.
Right.
And that's one of the options on a medium, which it's a small thing, but I actually think it's really important.
And I mean, you pay for that. It is on that upper end of the spectrum, and you know, but I think when people look at this bike in comparison to a lot of those other boutique brands, they're not going to be turned off by that. They're going to know what they're looking for, and they're going to appreciate all those options.
And apparently they still make 160 rotors, because there is one on the back end of the bike.
It looks tiny. You're not used to
You
seeing
thought it was
them
a 140.
Like, is this a 140?
Yeah, we're not used to seeing them anymore. And it's not a big weight penalty to go to 180, and we definitely notice it on some of the steeper descents. Like,
It's because you can't go so fast. You're kind of like,
Right.
Exactly.
One other nice thing is they have a lifetime warranty for the original owner and crash replacement, and I just think out of the gate that's another really kind of solid thing to offer, and something we would maybe need to use.
Yeah, like, so we had a rock kick up and go into the rear suspension linkage down near where the bottom bracket yoke and everything is, and then was just creaking in there, and it wore away on the frame a lot. Like the frame that we currently have is no longer usable, really, unfortunately. Sorry, guys. The other thing that wasn't amazing, so all the pivot hardware is double-sided, right? So you need 2 tools in order to do anything with it. And most companies now have switched to these one-sided bolt situations where like the receiving end of the linkage is actually threaded, so the bolt just threads directly into that instead of having some other shouldered thing receiving it. So that would be nice to see in the future for them to sort of upgrade that.
Mm-hmm.
With the geometry of this bike, it was kind of one of those ones that isn't kind of going with this trend of crazy long, you know, slack, all those kind of things. It still has kind of a, you know, moderate seat angle.
75.3 degree seat angle, which isn't super steep. There's a lot of bikes that have steeper seat angles in this category.
Yep.
And you
and
felt
we
that a
noticed
little
that.
bit, yeah, like on some of the steepest kind of pitches. You definitely had to shift your weight forward and get over that front wheel to keep it planted.
Yeah, but the bike fit really well. Like it's got a nice long reach, which is 473 in the large, right?
Why can you remember the reach and you can't even remember?
To get milk at the store.
Yeah.
I'll step in here. I know this argument.
And what was the head angle again? It was like a
67.5.
67, yeah.
Yeah, so it all kind of like, I feel like the geometry all worked really well together. Like all the numbers made sense. It felt really balanced and it felt good on the trail.
And in conjunction with this component spec, it really didn't feel like they missed the mark on anything. You know, it was light, it was snappy. I mean, on some of these techie ups, you just felt like there was nothing underneath you to, you know, if you needed to take a couple quick pedal strokes and pull up over a big root or something, or even looking for little downsides on the descents. I mean, I just felt so fast on this bike. It was crazy.
Feeling fast is kind of what this category is all about. Revel's CBF linkage is made for traction and efficiency, but the Ranger wraps it in a package that's made for agility and speed. Pretty wise choices for a new little bike company. We've got the full written review and the rest of the Bible of Bike Test videos at bikemag.com.